Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. We are only midway through February and already we have crowned a champion in 2025. Of course, it is Arvid Lindblad, the 2025 Formula Regional Oceania champion, taking home those sweet, delicious FIA Super License points. But with the Formula Regional Oceania 2025 championship over and done with, let's go back and look at how all 19 drivers performed and give them a rating, with S being the best and F being the worst. This is obviously subjective, and feel free to tell me where you disagree, but it was a lot more cut and dry in 2025 than previous years. This was the smallest field since the COVID hit year of 2021, or 2019 for a more normal example. But there were some quality drivers in the field, a lot of returning faces, and some absolute slop. A really mixed field. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and let's jump into the video. 19th, Brock Feeney. We are starting with last place in the championship and working our way forward. These scores are based as much on a presumed level of performance as well as their finishing position in the series. Also, we have to take into account that some drivers only did a few races, and so we start with last place Brock Feeney, who only did the last 3 races. It was interesting seeing the supercars superstar have a go at single-seaters. Unlike Will Brown, Brock Feeney has no real history with single-seaters. He did okay, some quick laps, but it looked like he had a hard time in the races. Best finish of 6th in the Grand Prix race. It's a D, not bad for a first effort, but I hope he tries again in 2026. I like seeing the supercars drivers mix it with the youngsters from Europe. 18th, James Lawley. Terrible. Crashed more than anyone else in the field, last of the full-time drivers, and only finished in the top 10 once. Not unsurprising given his performances in the US, but still bad. F. 17th, Barrett Wolf. Also only finished in the top 10 once, did very little in this series. I barely remember seeing him, in fact. Also an F. 16th, Tommy Smith. Australian Formula 3 driver Tommy Smith turned up for 6 races and not the New Zealand Grand Prix weekend. He somehow managed to be worse than last year as well. He's not very good. And I don't think moving to the US in Indian XT is going to bring out the best in him somehow. Still, he finished all 6 races and 5 in the top 10, so it wasn't totally disastrous. Maybe we'll be kind for a change and say it was a D. 15th, Jet Bowling. Speaking of doing worse than last year, well, actually, Jet Bowling looks worse every time I see him, and we see him a lot. This was technically better than his Macau performance, but I would argue all he did at Macau was crash. Not a lot of racing going on. He scored less points than in 2024, finished 3 places lower, and I don't think we're going to see anything better from Jet Bowling. E. 14th, Nicholas Stati. Remember, he is very, very young, and he did alright. He beat his more experienced teammates and finished all but 2 races. He did only finish in the top 10 once as well, and there is absolutely room for improvement. I hope we see Nicholas Stati back next year, maybe with M2 instead of Kiwi Motorsport. I think this young man has much better in him. For now, it's a D, but I can see better if he comes back in the future. 13th, Alex Crosby. Kind of the opposite of Stati. Alex Crosby was a real surprise package in 2024. He got a podium, finished in the top 10 in all but 3 races, and finished 5th overall. His return in 2025 has seen no podiums and only 1 finish in the top 10. He scored nearly 100 points more in 2024 than he did in 2025. I don't know what went wrong here, but hopefully he can do better with whatever his plans for 2025 are. It's an E for Crosby, as I was expecting a lot better, but he's another who could come back and do a lot better than this. 12th, Nicolas Monteiro. Well, he did better than fellow Brazilian Lucas Facuri, but it wasn't an Igor Fraga level year for Monteiro. That was until the final weekend when he finished 2nd in the reverse grid race. So he's got talent, could be one to watch. It's only a C, and that's generous since the rest of his campaign was very average, but that 2nd place makes him stick out amongst the lower-ended drivers. 11th, Enzo Ye. There were some really impressive drives from the Taiwanese driver, but he struggled to maintain a high level of performance throughout the course of the 5 weeks. He finished 4th in 3 of the reverse grid races, but got caught up in a couple of incidents and finished outside the top 10 too many times. A D for Ye, but again, he's only 16 and could come back and do a lot better than this. 10th, Will Brown. The 2024 Supercars champion was stepping out of his comfort zone and there were some hairy moments, but he scored 3 podiums and, more importantly, walked away with the New Zealand Grand Prix. He missed 6 races, so the championship was never really on the table, but Will Brown took away the next best thing. It's only a B because overall, it definitely wasn't perfect, but New Zealand Grand Prix winner Will Brown probably won't mind. 9th, Sean Rashid. This is probably the best I've ever seen from Sean Rashid. Nothing special, but more consistent than usual. A podium in a reverse grid race and a 4th place in the Grand Prix. Not bad at all. If there is something that let Rashid down, then it was far too many finishes outside the top 10. But overall, not bad. It's a C. 8th, Michael Shin. In 2024, Michael Shin took a win and 4 podiums on the way to 4th overall in the Formula Regional Oceania. In 2025, he took just 2 podiums and dropped all the way back to 8th overall. Poor from Shin, he was pretty anonymous throughout. It's an E, but I fear this might be Michael Shin's level. He's done enough racing now. He has had little success. That 4th place in New Zealand in 2024 might be his peak. 7th, Josh Pearson. I find it strange that the only 3 races Pearson missed were the Grand Prix weekend. It was a decent championship for the American endurance star, a few podiums in reverse grid races, always in the top 10, gave a very good account of himself, and had he not missed the final weekend, he could have challenged for 4th in the championship. 7th on a first attempt isn't terrible either. A B for Pearson. 6th, Sebastian Manson. 2 wins for someone who has just turned 17 on his first full-time attempt at this series is pretty good going. He's someone to keep an eye on in 2025. 2nd in Formula Regional Japan last year, wins here in New Zealand. Next up is USF Pro 2000 Championship over in the States, and given he's already beaten some of those guys in this series, he could be taking that championship by storm. B for Manson. 5th, Matthias Zagazzetta. I don't know, 5th isn't bad and Zagazzetta took 2 wins and 2 podiums, but given he was more experienced than the majority of this field, he should have done better. He finished up 126 points behind Lindblad, and he retired from the Grand Prix race. He is the best Peruvian race driver we have seen in a long time, but he's a Formula 3 level driver. Not a great one, but still with Formula 3 experience. He should have been closer to the front. E. 4th, Patrick Hoitzenroder. Was this Patrick Hoitzenroder's first ever win in motorsport? He was another that did a lot better than I thought he would. His win wasn't a reverse grid race, it was done on pure pace. A few podiums as well. It's a shame after he took his win, he failed to finish the next 2 races. But this was a much improved Patrick Hoitzenroder. Grade B performance. 3rd, Nikita Johnson. But even better was Nikita Johnson. Only 1 win, but he had a constant presence on the podium. He finished 2nd 4 times, never finished lower than 8th, and was not really all that far off the championship. If a talent like Arvid Lindblad wasn't out in front, then Johnson would have been in with a shout. And for someone who has only really ever been and also ran in GB3, that's damn impressive. I'm not sure about splitting his year between GB3 and Indian XT. That seems like a lot of work. Maybe he'd be better off picking one, but he's definitely getting better. A-grade championship for the top American in the field. 2nd, Zach Schooler. For someone who has never raced in New Zealand or in Formula Regional, young Zach Schooler made it look pretty easy. Taking the opening win of the year, several podiums, finishing all the races and in the top 10. A few mistakes, but nothing major, and he beat more experienced drivers to get into 2nd place in the championship. Don't know what his plans are for 2025, but he wouldn't be out of place in Formula Regional Europe, maybe even Formula 3. He will almost certainly get to that level eventually. A. 1st, Arvid Lindblad. I am hardly surprised, but Arvid Lindblad did make this look pretty easy, and it was clear after the first weekend that it was going to be a big ask for anyone to keep up with him. He needed to dominate this series and start his Formula 2 career off with some confidence, but I think he'll be disappointed with his performance in the New Zealand Grand Prix race. 6 wins, on the podium in every race bar 3. It was an excellent performance from Arvid Lindblad, and honestly, if he keeps this up, he'll be in Formula 1 in the next couple of years. Red Bull are getting through drivers. There's rumours Max wants to leave, Tsunoda might go after missing out on a Red Bull seat. If Lawson and Hadjar don't perform, then Red Bull are more than happy to wield the axe. Space for a talented driver like Lindblad? Absolutely. S grade for the champion. So that is how everyone involved with the Formula Regional Oceania performed in 2025. A lot of these drivers have a bright future, but there were some very poor performances as well. I look forward to seeing who turns up for the 2026 championship, some Formula 3 talent, a selection of up-and-coming teenagers, and some warriors from the V8 Supercars Championship would be a perfect mix in my opinion. We still have the Formula Regional and Formula 4 Middle East going on for another couple of weeks, but I'll do something similar for those championships. So make sure you subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on the Formula Regional Oceania 2025 Championship. How would you grade some of these drivers? Thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.